Welcome back to Benny's Custom Works, proudly supported by Valvoline and Sparesbox. Don't forget BCW5 on checkout. This week, we're back on the Lexus. We've got our 6-litre back from Empire Mechanical. We've got a pile of broken bits on the bench, which we're going to go through and explain pretty much what I think has happened. But yeah, long story short, the engine is back and fixed and all nice and fresh again. So today, we're going to go through the carnage, then we're going to jam this thing together, then we're going to get it running, then we're going to high five, and then we're going to go home. And this week, we won't forget the high five. Here's our pile of broken bits. We've got the camshaft, which has got some pretty major damage on one lobe, and we've also got a little bit of marking on the second lobe. We've got our lifter. Now, this isn't actually the worst lifter. So this is the one where we've got the light scarring on the cam. We've got all of our, or most of our big end bearings here. Most of these actually look worse than they are, but there's definitely a few where you can catch your nail on them, and it's generally when you can catch your nail on anything that's machined or a bearing surface, that's a pretty good indication that it's had a pretty hard life. And we've got our oil pump here. Now this is actually an aftermarket upgraded oil pump, so it's a bit of a shame to throw this one in the bin. We're not going to throw it in the bin, we're going to send it to someone. But I'm going to pull it apart now and have a look at it. I've already actually had a look at it, and I undid the screws off camera because sometimes these screws can be a mission to undo. Luckily this one, being a fresh pump, came apart good. Still got a cast backing plate. This one isn't a billet type one. Pull our gears out. You can see there's a pretty bad marring on the face of the pump there. Probably a pretty good indication that some metal has gone through the pump. And the real evidence of what's going on is actually on the tips of the rotors and also the tips of the body here. Basically, there's just pretty bad galling everywhere. You can tell that tons of metal has been through this. For that reason, I'd recommend anytime you have really any type of engine failure to put at a bare minimum a pair of pump gears in your pump. Some engines you can't really get pump gears easily. I'm not sure about LS's, but the price of one of these pumps isn't too bad. The Cresta we run, the HP Junkie billet pump, and those pumps themselves are about $1,800, so I don't like to replace the whole pump. We actually send those pumps back to HP Junkie, and they do sort of give them a check over and a freshen up and send them back to us. So yeah, some companies will do like a refresh service. So yeah, highly recommend if you are going to buy the fancier pumps to contact the manufacturer if you've got issues, because they can sort of set them up and give them a freshen up. But we're going to get some close-ups of the carnage, then we're going to laugh at it, and then we're going to start putting the engine in. We've got both of the lifters here. I thought I'd actually put them side by side so you can see a bit more of the damage, because it's not really obvious what's going on without having a good one to compare it to. We've got a fair bit of excess material that's been burred over here, and it's actually sort of rounded off this whole face, whereas it should be dead flat. That's a pretty good indication that the lifter's actually spun in the lifter tray. The one thing I don't have is actually the lifter trays, but they are like a nylon, pretty heavy duty nylon plastic that holds these square on this flat face typically. But yeah, this one's had a few that have spun. Those trays were actually genuine GM ones as well, so we didn't use aftermarket ones because typically everyone reckons the GM ones are the best. That being said, this particular instance, it didn't love it. But we have got off pretty lightly, I think, given the noise this thing was making and what we've actually found. So yeah, pretty happy with that. We reused the crank. It's been linished, and obviously all new bearings. We put new cam bearings in it again as well, because the cam bearings looked much like this. So yeah, we've basically done rings and bearings again. All of this stuff is obviously junk, but realistically, this kind of job, if this happened in your street car, you'd probably be looking about $3,000 to $4,000, not including removing the engine. If you could pull it out yourself, you're going to save a fair bit of money. But yeah, if for a shop to do a drive-in, drive-out on this, I reckon you're probably at a $6.5 to $7 grand job, roughly. Every shop's going to be different labour rate and whatnot. But yeah, if you can budget that sort of money, get a shop to do it. If not, pull the engine out, take it to a shop, or do the whole thing yourself. Engines scare me. I have done them before, but yeah, I prefer to just leave it to the professionals on this one. As much as I'm a qualified mechanic, we actually did very little engine building at TAFE. It was like a 3-day course, I think. So a lot of that information's gone out of my head. And while I could learn it again, and I will one day, I don't have the time for it right now. And Empire does a pretty good job. Unfortunately, it's basically just parts failure. So the rollers have collapsed in a couple of these lifters, which has basically killed a lot of stuff. So we're going to throw this thing together. We're going to throw all these things on the shelf, and like I said, we're going to give them away at some point. Oh, this is not light. Is it bad that my favorite thing out of this whole clutch kit is the billet alignment tools? I rave on about these every time. Today will be no different. As per the notes, undo the sway bar. I did remember to replace the starter motor while I had the car apart. Wasn't a particularly exciting job, so I've just done that off camera. The previously aforementioned reliable flywheel clutch kit that dropped the ring gear actually damaged the starter. And replacing that starter in the car, it's probably the one thing that's a really big task with this conversion. It's really tight on the rack, the headers, and the block. While it's possible to do it in the car, it's much nicer to do it with the engine out. It's literally a 2-second job. So yeah, that's now done. I did give the engine bay a quick wash. Having a look now, it was a very quick wash, so it probably needs to be done again. But once we've got the thing running and operational, I'll probably actually get a good wash. There's a hoist around the corner now in a wash bay, so we'll just get it up there and give it a really good pressure wash under the car. Because yeah, it's just got a bit of grime and stuff built up under the car now that does need a really good clean off. So yeah, give it a good tidy up, and then I'll be ready to make a mess next time we go to the track. If you're like me and you've nearly forgot to put your cam and crank sensor in because you've got new ones, make sure you do it before you fit the engine into the car. We got these ones from Jamie at Raceworks. He helps us out with a lot of this sort of sensory stuff as well. But yeah, we're going to put a new cam and a new crank angle sensor in it today. The cam angle sensor on this one did have issues previously, so we are just going to put brand new ones in to alleviate all of those issues. Alignment pins. Hot. This jerry rig I've got in front of me is actually to prime the oil system. Last time we put this engine in, I actually cranked it on the starter motor. May or may not have been the issue. We had a lifter failure, but I figured because we've already got all of this plumbing under the vehicle for the oil system, being that we've got the external oil filter and an inline oil cooler, just going to pump 5 litres of oil directly through that circuit, and then that'll actually go into the engine as well. It'll pre-lube all of our top end, all of our lifters, all the sort of stuff that should be lubed before you do the first startup. Obviously there's still engine assembly lube and engine oil in the engine from when it was assembled, but I do want to actually fully pre-lube this engine before we fire it up, because I'm a little bit superstitious now that maybe we've done something from trying to crank it too long on the oil on the starter motor. That being said, we're going to pump all of the oil through, then we'll continue to assemble it and fire it up. It's obviously starting to actually build pressure because we've got a leak. And this is where we find all the stuff I've left loose. It's already got oil pressure. How much better is that? 45 pound of oil. Clipper up. Oh, it runs. Well, that's another episode in the bag. We've got the old IS600 up and running again, so we'll no doubt see some track time pretty soon. Unfortunately, drifting's pretty much dead in New South Wales, so I think I'm going to actually revert this thing back to grip for a while. It's probably less hard on the running gear as well, so I might get more than a couple of days out of it. But we're definitely going to be doing some track grip work soon, so that'll be cool to see in a future episode. Thanks as always to Empire Mechanical and Racing for their support. Omar chucked this engine together for me pretty quickly to be able to get the car up and running again. Timeline-wise in the videos, it probably hasn't seemed like it really was quick, but yeah, he's actually done this thing pretty quickly for me, but we've got all sorts of stuff coming out at different times. And because we didn't go to drag week, our video schedule is now completely messed up. But yeah, we're gonna do some grip, have some fun, and cruise around the track, hopefully before they ban every single form of motorsport in New South Wales altogether and we've got to go interstate. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.